Am I wrong for telling my sister grieving her dog is not the same as me grieving my husband? To make a long story short, I lost my husband only a month ago. It's hard. I'm still grieving and I miss him every day. I have to take medication for depression and anxiety to help me get through the day. Last week, my sister's dog was put down due to some health issues and she was very upset, which is understandable. She called me as soon as it happened and said I was the only sibling who would understand her pain. I didn't mind. Honestly, I just wanted to comfort her since her dog meant the world to her. She held a wake for him and our whole family attended. It was a nice service. But now she's comparing our losses, telling me she knows exactly what I'm going through, that she can relate to the pain of losing someone so close to you. She calls me asking if we could visit graves together. It was fine the first time, but it's constant. She goes 3 times a day. It's already difficult to go once a week for me, and she knows this. I feel like she's not even considering my own grief process. Anyway, I told her that grieving her dog is not the same as grieving my husband. She's upset and refuses to talk to me now. I get it. It was uncalled for, really, but my loss is new to me too, and I guess I just got frustrated with how different we're dealing with our losses. I don't know. I feel like she should understand where I'm coming from. A dog is not the same as a husband. A dog can't love you back like a husband can. A dog can't read to your children like a husband can. A dog can't make soup when you're ill like a husband can. It's really hard for me right now to discern when I'm being condescending or not. I don't know if it's a side effect of my medication or if the empathetic part of my brain has shut down, but I'm really getting tired of her comparing our pain when she lost her dog and I lost my world. At the very least, she still has her husband. I have 2 young children at home processing a loss unimaginable to most kids their age, and she's trying to whisk me away to graveyards to visit her dog. So, am I the asshole? My son stole his dead mother's ring for his girlfriend, and now he won't talk to me after making him return it. To say I was mad as hell would be an understatement. I, 46 male, have a son Jake, 23 male. Jake was a good kid growing up, so him doing this was a complete shock to me. I have a daughter too. Amber, 16 female. When my wife passed away from COVID nearly 2 years ago, she already had a will in place. She was immunocompromised due to a prior condition she was diagnosed with a decade before she passed. And she made sure she had a will set just in case anything happened to her. And instead, she will divide her assets between our children. And Jake got his cut as he was already 21. He used that money to put a down payment on a condo, and he also got his mother's car. But the will stated that my daughter was to get all of my wife's jewelry. That included a vintage gold ring with a diamond that had a little blue sapphire on each side of it. The ring has been passed down for generations in my wife's family. It was originally her grandmother's wedding band. Her husband was a jeweler and handcrafted the ring for her himself. And it was passed down to my wife's mother when her grandmother died, and then to my wife herself when her mother passed away. Along with it, any and all other jewelry was to go to my daughter. When my wife passed, my grief was intense. But I powered through it for the sake of my family, and they supported me 100%. So the betrayal from my son was just a rusty knife in the back for me. For the past 8 months, Jake has been dating Sarah. She has my son wrapped around her finger, and she loves jewelry and she adorns herself with it a lot. My son mentioned the family jewels my wife left his sister to Sarah one day, and Sarah really wanted to see them. So Jake went into my room when no one was home and showed them to her. He later admitted to me he'd done this and I was angry, but I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Jake came to me a week ago and begged for that ring from his mother's family jewel so that he could propose with it. He said Sarah had fallen in love with the ring when she saw it before, and he just knew it'd be the perfect ring to ask her to marry him with. He seemed completely convinced I'd be jumping for joy for him wanting to propose, but instead I told him that I was not the one to ask as the ring belongs to Amber, and I wouldn't have him pressuring her to give it up either. For a fair chance, I'd allowed him to explain his reasons and asked her for it once, but only once, without pressuring her. And if she refuses for any reason, that will be the end of it. Jake agreed and asked Amber for the ring right in front of me, but she told him no because she wanted to keep it in the family jewels and has always loved that ring. To her, it's priceless. She couldn't bear to ever give it up. I told Jake that was that and to not press the matter further. Jake left looking very unhappy about not getting the ring, but I thought he'd let it go and look into finding a similar one. But he came back another day while I was at work to talk to his sister after she got home from school. He and Amber got into a huge fight about the ring, and Amber called me crying. I called Jake and told him to get out of my house and leave his sister alone. Jake yelled at me that he should have just as much right to the ring as his sister, because my wife was his mother too. But I reminded him he got a lot of his mother's money and her car. The jewelry is Amber's and only hers. He hung up on me, and Amber soon texted me that he left very angry. Later, right before I left for work, my daughter called and told me that Jack came back. He walked in dressed in a suit, went into my room and took something, then left without saying anything to Amber. She tried to keep him from leaving, but he shoved her out of the way. I rushed home as soon as my shift was over and checked my wife's jewelry box. The ring was gone. I immediately called Jake, but he didn't answer, so I messaged him that I'll get the police involved if he doesn't return the ring. ring. Using it to propose won't stop me from taking it back. That finally made him talk to me, and he tried to say I couldn't do that to him because he's my son. I said I can and will because he outright stole the ring, and he'd better bring it back right away or I would take drastic measures. Well, he phoned me right after that, and in a whisper he said that it was too late. He'd taken his girlfriend out to dinner and proposed to her with the ring. He hadn't had it for more than an hour by this point, yet the ring was already on her finger. I said that was his problem. He stole the ring, he can bring it back. It's not his, and I will do whatever it takes to make sure it's returned. And if that means going to police and blowing the whole situation up, then so be it. I'll file a report, I'll even get a lawyer. Jake started crying and saying I couldn't do this to him. I told him tough luck. He stole from both his sister and dead mother. I would not back down until the ring was returned. Jake wouldn't stop crying and making excuses, so I told him to have the ring back by morning or I would be moving forward with legal action. Jake is my son, but he still broke the law, and I couldn't overlook what he did. He said he'd be in by the morning to talk and ended the call while crying even more. Well, Jake did show up in the morning and brought his girlfriend with him to try and guilt us. Turns out, she not only knew he stole the ring, she wanted to keep it anyway, because she was completely in love with the ring since she first laid eyes on it. I told her I didn't care. She could have a jeweler make a copy of it or something, but the original doesn't belong to her, it belongs to my daughter and deceased wife. Jake begged me one more time not to make her give it back, but I and my daughter stood firm. Return the ring or face police and maybe even a potential lawsuit. Jake's girlfriend pulled the ring off her finger and dropped it in my daughter's hand, called me an evil bastard, then left my house in tears. Jake started screaming at me that I may have just destroyed his relationship. I retorted him that he did this to his own relationship by stealing a ring that didn't belong to him. What kind of son steals from his own sister and dead mother? That is beyond terrible. Jake had nothing more to say to me and walked out to follow after his girlfriend. I didn't get anyone else involved in the situation, but Jake did. He tried getting support from friends and family, but he got the exact opposite reaction he'd hoped for. They were all mad at him over what he'd done. I got many phone calls and messages from people offering me condolences and saying they were not on Jake's side. I tried to do damage control, but now everybody knows. It's been a week now and Jake refuses to speak to me. I've sent him detailed pictures of the ring just in case he wanted a jeweler to replicate it, but making a copy would be very expensive unless he used fake stones. And thus far, there has been no response. I don't know what the situation is with his girlfriend, if she even still is his girlfriend after what happened, but I stand by the fact that Jake had to return the ring. I have since had all of my wife's jewelry placed in a safety deposit box that only I have access to, and the jewelry will remain there until my daughter is 21. It may even stay there if she wants to keep it safe that way. I know I'm in the right to have reclaimed the ring, however, I don't want my son to hate me, and I don't want the family to hate him. If anyone has any advice as to how to better mediate this situation without me giving away the ring or spending lots of money, I'm all ears.
Am I wrong for refusing to eat my girlfriend's awful cooking and ordering takeout instead? So I'm facing a culinary nightmare in my relationship and I need to know if I'm being unreasonable. My girlfriend really does pride herself on being a home chef, but her cooking skills are just awful. Every time she prepares a meal, it's a disaster waiting to happen. While she doesn't make dinner every day, at least 3 times a week, I'm confronted with her concoctions. She never sticks to recipes and says all good chefs freestyle it, but the flavors are so bland and the textures are off. And the presentation is a sad excuse for a meal. The thing is, she thinks they're great. Meanwhile, I'm holding back a gag reflex. I have brought up her cooking skills or lack thereof once or twice, but she's completely convinced herself. In an attempt to salvage my taste buds, I've resorted to secretly ordering takeout and discreetly disposing of her meals or just eating very little of it. She's really happy that I'm enjoying her food, but I'm actually enjoying some takeout food. Am I wrong for refusing to eat my girlfriend's awful cooking and ordering takeout instead? I've resorted to secretly ordering takeout and discreetly disposing of her meals or just eating very little of it. She's happy I'm enjoying her food, but in reality, I'm actually enjoying some food. Just not hers. Well, last night she caught me red-handed eating takeout in the kitchen and it all blew up. She was furious, accusing me of being ungrateful and disrespectful towards her efforts. I tried to explain why I can't stomach her food anymore, but she's unwilling to listen or adapt. Now she wants me to apologize and promise to eat her cooking no matter how terrible it is. But I don't think I can subject myself to such torture. So Reddit, am I wrong for refusing to eat my girlfriend's awful cooking and opting for takeout instead? The top response says, you're the asshole for taking the sitcom way instead of having a proper adult conversation. Maybe you could meal prep in advance and she can just make her own. But another comment says, he said he's brought up her cooking before and sounds like you tried to talk to her about it. Am I wrong for getting my fiance a ring on a chain when I proposed? I, 29 male, wanted to propose to my girlfriend, 28 female, but she's a nurse and can't wear rings at work. With that being said, I wanted to give her something she could keep with her at all times. I work as a graphic designer, so I designed a ring and a chain that I thought she'd really enjoy. The ring is in a style that she's worn before, and I know she likes, with a diamond as well as opals, which are her favorite. The chain is fairly small and sturdy and made of stainless steel core with alternating gold and silver links over top. That way it's stronger and the clasp for the chain is invisible. I thought honestly it'd be perfect.
2 weeks later, I find messages from Karen on his phone. At that point, I had completely forgotten about Karen. Husband and I tried to do date nights every single week. This one occasion, we sit down at a restaurant, and his phone kept going off, pinging almost every single minute. He wouldn't turn off the sound. 7th time it rang, I decided to pick up the phone only to silence it. I mean, at this point, I have no reason to not trust him. But when I took a quick glance at the messages, it said work wife. My blood instantly began to boil. That's when he tried to take the phone from me, but I pulled it back. Opened the messages and see that they were having a conversation about me and him going to dinner. How jealous she was that she couldn't come with him. Mind you, we're sitting in the middle of a restaurant. So my husband says, go ahead and read it. I don't give a shit. I look at him and I couldn't recognize him. Like, I literally could not recognize his face. He looked like a different man. He was no longer the considerate, loving husband. He was now just another guy texting another girl. As I read through the messages, the tears started flowing down my face. And I made a scene. I told him he needed to stop texting her. Then he says, no, I like her. Why would I stop? My husband won't stop texting his coworker and doesn't even bother to hide it from me. This kind of time I started him on Instagram. That's when he told me that he liked her and why would he stop texting her. I actually had to sit there at the restaurant and explain to my 30-year-old husband why it was inappropriate for him to be texting his work wife. He said they were doing nothing wrong by texting each other.